So you see, this is now the break time. If you were physically there in the class, then this would be the time that you go out, walk around, take a sip of water, physically do some movement, refresh yourself. Within 4-5 minutes, come back, and then we have a small mental break so that you break away mentally from the course, relax a little, refresh, recharge your batteries, and then start again, right? It is always a tough time for me to try to, have some funny portion which you have not done with me in some earlier course. There was an advertisement in a newspaper that there is a Mercedes for sale for 100 reals. Now, nobody believed it, but one of you, me, somebody was curious that, you see, this is not possible, but let us see. So you called, there is a lady, she said, no, it is very serious, I am selling it, and this is my address, and if you can come to this address, then you can talk about it. So I said, okay, she is still saying it is serious. So I went there, I, you, somebody else, some friend, whoever, right? And you rang the bell. Middle-aged lady, right? 40s, 50s, a middle-aged lady opened the door. Are you selling the Mercedes? The lady said, yes. Can I have a look at the car? She said, yes, of course. So she let her servant or maid open the garage. And you look at the car and you are really surprised. She said, this is in a very, very good condition. She said, yes. Can I look at inside? She gave me the key. I looked inside. It is only 18,000 kilometers. This is like only, I don't know, 2-3 years max. This is, he said, yes, yes. But you said that you are selling it for 100 Omani Riyals. She said, yes, 100 Omani Riyals. Are you really serious? He said, yes, I am. So you took out your wallet, 100 Riyals is there. Do you accept it? She said, yes. You give me this, take this key, and I will write a note that I am selling it to you. So now you are like, my goodness, what luck, what unbelievable. But now she has signed the note also. She has given you the key also. She said, now you go ahead and you drive it out, no problem. And you start it and you take it out and it is running beautifully. There is a nice purring sound. So now you stop it when you are outside the house. Now you stop it and you come back and you are asking that, you see, I am very curious. Please tell me the reason. How can you sell it for 100 Riyals? The lady said that, don't worry. Let me tell you so that you don't have a lot of doubt or something. I am just fulfilling the wish of my late husband. My husband passed away some time back, and this was one of his wishes. I am again still surprised. He said that in his will, he had written that when I please sell this Mercedes car and give the amount to my second wife. Joke is over. Okay, so back to the lecture. This is still based on the same diagram that we showed you about the classification. Particulate processing. Starting materials are powders of metals or ceramics or so on, or plastics sometimes. Usually involves pressing and sintering in which powders are first compressed and then heated to bond the individual particles. Sintering is that. Sintering means you are applying pressure and temperature so that the particles join together completely. So you start with some particle. There is a die where the shape will be there. You apply the force through the punch and there is some heat, and then the sintering and so on, right? So particulate processing nowadays, powder metallurgy is a major new area, and because of powder metallurgy and so on, 3D printing and those things are now possible. They are ultra modern manufacturing processes. They are particulate type. Deformation process. You see, in solidification, you melt and solidify. In particulate, you start with a powder and then apply pressure and temperature to give it the shape. Deformation, you don't melt. You don't melt. And you don't have it in powder form. You have it in standard normal form. So the starting work part is shaped by application of forces that exceed the yield strength of the material. So you apply enough force or stress so that the material goes into the plastic state, the plastic deformation state, and you give it the shape by force, right? So forging, extrusion and so on are some of the methods. We will cover them later. Forging is this. You have the material. This upper and lower portion are together the die, and when you apply this force, then the material is forced into this die, right? So this could be big hammering, this could be piston cylinder type of dieing and so, right? And the metal here, generally, if it is forging, will be heated so that it is softer. It is not melted. It is just heated enough so it is softer and it can take the shape. This is extrusion, for example. You have this material which is in a round shape, and there is the die. This is the die. And you force the material through the die, and the material comes out in the shape of the die. For example, a round shape or a pipe or whatever. And it keeps on coming out until all the material is finished. So you get a very long shape of whatever the die is. So in both of these, forging or extrusion, you are not cutting, you are not melting, you are not using a powder of the material. You are just taking the material and at whatever temperature, either room temperature or higher temperature to make it softer, you are forcing it to take the shape of the die. So this is called deformation process. Material removal, right? Material removal, you normally call it machining. All of you have done workshop 1, so you know lathe machine and milling machine and drilling machine and shaping and so on. So this is material removal, right? This is material removal. The excess material is removed from the starting piece. So what remains is the desired geometry. Machining such as turning, drilling, milling, grinding, non-traditional processes. So I am showing you the turning operation schematically, right? You have the material. This portion is inside the machine, the chuck of the machine, it can rotate. You have the tool here, and after removing some of the material, you have the shape. This is drilling, this is surface grinding or milling, right? So in all of these, whether it is turning or drilling or milling or shaping or surface grinding, you are removing some material to give it the final shape, right? So this manufacturing method is material removal or machining in normal. So these, which the slides which we just passed, solidification, melting and solidifying, particulate processing, taking particle and applying pressure and temperature, or deformation processes like extrusion, forging. These are, and finally material removal, machining, right? So these 4 are the basic manufacturing operations. So any manufacturing book, these are the 4 basic manufacturing operations: melting and solidifying, particle processing, direct deformation like extrusion and forging, or material removing or machining like turning, milling and so on. So all these are the general basic manufacturing operations. Now that if you have already produced by any of these methods, but you want to increase the property, right? So property enhancing property, right? So they are performed to improve mechanical or physical properties of the work material. the part shape is not altered. Maybe by chance, unintentionally, you change it, so you have to bring it back because you have produced the final shape and the final dimensions. You don't want to change the shape or the dimensions, but you want to improve the property. So heat treatment is one of those. Heat treatments of metals, heat treatments of glasses. There are other, if you remember, right, there are some other things. We can expose the material to certain gases like nitrogen and carbon and so on, and carbonitriding or carburizing or just nitriding. There will, right? So very small particles, atomic size or molecular size, will penetrate into the material. They will increase the hardness of the surface and so on, right? So it is not just heat treatment. It is in powder metals. In powder metals, sintering. In powder metals, sintering will improve, right? So heat treatment or carburizing, nitriding, carbonitriding, these are types which can increase the property of the material, but most of the property enhancement in all manufacturing is heat treatment. Then surface processing, right? One thing is just cleaning. After production, the surface is not clean. So chemically or mechanically, you remove the dirt or the oil and the other contaminations from the surface. So this is very critical. This is important. Then surface treatments. You can do mechanical working such as sandblasting. I don't know if you know sandblasting. You take the piece and you hit it at high pressure with sand particles. So all the material which was sticking to the surface is removed and it is cleaned and so on. There could be other processes like diffusion. For example, when I said nitriding in the previous slide, then nitrogen gas will diffuse into the material. And coating and thin film deposition. You can coat the surface by different methods. Galvanizing is a major method by which we coat. Electroplating is a method by which we coat. Normal painting, you can paint the surface, right? So you can clean the surface by a lot of normal or very advanced methods, or you can coat the surface to improve its properties and so on, right? So now we are in the second part of manufacturing. Remember, manufacturing overall is divided into processing operations and assembly. So all the processing operations we finished in the last slide, right? First, all the shaping methods, melting and solidifying, particle processing, direct deformation like extrusion forging, material removal like turning, milling and so on. Those were the shaping operations. And then the property enhancing operations like heat treatment and nitriding and so on, and the surface treatment operations like cleaning, chemically, mechanically, coating, electroplating and so on. So all of the major operations which are called processing operations are complete now. The second part, right? The second part was assembly operations, right? The second part was assembly operations. So assembly operations are there. Joining by any method, welding, brazing, adhesive bonding, mechanical assembly, threaded fasteners, rivets, interference fits, other types of. So here I am just showing you all these threaded nuts and bolts and fasteners, welding, joining. So these are all assembly operations, right? These are all assembly operations.